when people be messaging you.
Okay, babe.
Where I'm at, Di. I'm good.
This is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing, nothing without a woman or girl. Ooh, you see, man made the car to take us over the road. Man made the train.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Purpose and passion loading. It's my time.
Added y'all to the stage.
Happy Friday, fellas.
Yes.
Friday, happy
Good.
Friday.
Man,
Let's go.
Friday couldn't have come any sooner.
Nah, I'm in agreement with
Man,
that.
bro.
One of them weeks.
It was absolutely one of those weeks, bro. Jeez.
Oh, man.
I look forward to this, man. Look forward to being under the same roof in the same room with
Absolutely.
y'all. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the King's Cutting Board.
What it do?
Let's do quick introductions, shall we?
We shall.
Since I'm starting off, ladies and gentlemen, I go by Victor Vaughn. The gentleman to my right with the hat,
That's gonna be Bruce Bailey, Choir Boy. What it do?
and the gentleman to my left is.
Bruce Davis, Don Chico.
He gave it all. He gave it all.
Gave
this
it
evening.
all.
He ready,
Gave it
he
all
ready, he
today.
ready to
Feeling
rock. He
his
ready to
feeling.
rock.
Good, baby. Feeling good.
He's ready to rock and roll. Collectively, ladies and gentlemen, along with the wind beneath our wings, the boss of bosses, slightly off camera, our executive producer, Coach Princess D. We are the King's Cutting Board. Let us very, very quickly say what we are not, ladies and gentlemen. We are not clickbait. We are not the status quo. We are not what it is a lot of the content that's out there. We collectively came together under the direction of our executive producers, 3 men who wanted to provide a diverse perspective or insight, if you will, into the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the fears, the dreams, the hopes, right, of men that you typically do not hear. So I'll be unmodest. That's not a word. I'll
It
set
is-
my-
it is
I'll-
today.
We're going to make it one.
I'll set modesty down for a second. Typically, we think you all agree. Men typically, we keep things inside. It's how we're raised, right? We literally divorce ourselves from our emotions as little kids when we're taught to stop crying, don't be a punk, right? Don't act like a girl, suck it up, walk it off, right? And so we systematically are built like this. And then we find ourselves in relationships where we want to love, right? Where we want to care.
Yep.
And oftentimes it's imbalanced because we remain silent for so long,
Yep.
because it's what we've always done, that we find that we do ourselves and the relationship a disservice. And so
Absolutely.
you fast forward until we in a time and a climate that's more toxic than ever, right? Where men and women are pointing fingers at each other, talking about what each other don't do and what they won't do, right? And the fact that men historically don't say what's on their mind doesn't help to alleviate it, especially when we're the healers, we're the repairer of the breach. And so we're here to bring something different, we hope, to you, and we're first partakers. We get the benefit first and foremost. These gentlemen
Thank God.
are the iron that sharpens me.
Vice versa.
We have, it's one thing to say grown folk conversation, but it's different to say mature conversation, right? Because grown can be grown can be real real trashy, right? Right? But mature suggests something different, a sense of self, a sense of understanding, right? Of healing, of evolution, right? And so that's what we hope to bring with you all, with the express purpose, like our brother Bruce says, for creating new norms.
Yep.
Right? Different from the finger pointing, different from the what they won't do or what you're not gonna do.
Yep.
right? And our desire is to create dialogue that causes men and women, especially Black men and women, to lean into one another, to talk to each other far more than at each other. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's heated, right? Sometimes it's deep, right? Sometimes we have people sharing very personal things, right? And literally people are on the edge of tears, like the episode we did about fatherless women.
Definitely.
Tonight, the topic was so good, we had to come back and do a part 2, right? The S word, right? The S word. And if you don't know, the S word is submission. And so submission part 2, and Bruce and Caprice, submission is one of those words that when people hear it, it evokes emotion, right? One way or the other, people feel very, very strongly about it.
Definitely.
And what we wanted to do, what we always hope to do, is first establish a level of understanding, because with this word, in relationships in general, but specifically with this word, there's a ton of misunderstanding. There's a ton of ignorance. And because of that, there's a ton of misappropriation, right? People all in a fuss, in a tizzy about this word, when we discovered it's not even applying, right? Or it was not even meant for you. So we're going to get into it a little bit deeper. I see your notes on your screen. Caprice has 2 notebooks and his phone. So the fellas did their homework this evening. And so also, I would be remiss if I did not say, listen, thank you for spending some time with us. Please like, please follow. And in addition, please share. So you can find us. We actually have a brand new fan page on Facebook. That is the Kings 'S. So the Kings Cutting Board Podcast on Facebook and YouTube, the Kings Cutting Board 2024. So again, please like, please follow. And in addition, if you believe that we're bringing value, please share as well. And so with that said, I'm gonna pivot to my brother on my right first, because you always do such a great job of setting the foundation and setting the tone for us. And so if you will kind of pick up where we left off, right? Where we clearly defined, right, what submission is, why it is, and what would you add kind of dovetail to that conversation?
Yeah, so last week we wrapped up with submission in general, right, in relationships. This week we wanted to transition to submission from a wife to a husband. We've talked about how different both of those submissions are, right? We also talked about, I think we raised the question, when should submission start?
Yes.
And we talked about submission isn't required until the point of marriage.
Correct. So
right?
say that, please say that again.
Yeah, submission isn't required until the point of marriage, right? That word required is a word that we use when we talk about standards, for example. We talk about there's no going around it. It's something that, regardless and in spite of, should be a part of marriage.
Absolutely.
Right? So we talked about this word sub, right? We broke down submission. This word sub means to be under, right? To be under a mission, right? The mere fact of a woman placing herself under a mission, right? And what that looks like depends on the man and the woman's relationship. What do I mean by that? I'm glad you asked. There is a point of time where there needs to be a conversation for the purpose of understanding.
Come on now.
Right? I think a lot of times we have misunderstandings because we tend not to communicate what we first of all understand.
Absolutely.
So the mere fact that we haven't talked about what submission looks like for you, what submission looks like for him, what's your expectation of submissiveness? We always talk about it. The power to define is the power to fulfill.
Telling you,
right?
that's a t-shirt waiting to happen.
That's a t-shirt waiting to happen.
T-shirt waiting to happen.
So again, we wanted to transition now into this submissiveness as it relates to a husband and wife. Okay, submissiveness comes from recognizing, really, females, the power and your positioning.
If I can, I want to set an additional point of context for somebody who may not have missed, right? And so typically when we talked about this last week, submission and submissiveness, and literally the order or the requirement to your point, more often than not, it's taken from a biblical context.
Absolutely.
Right? We talked about
Absolutely.
it also
Right.
in,
Even
in
in
the
the
scope
Qu-
of,
yeah.
of Islam, right? So either way, right, whether you're Christian or whether you're of the Muslim faith, it's a faith matter and a requirement in both regards for marriage. And so for all of the people,
This thing get good
Right.
already. I ain't even gonna lie.
for all of the, especially, and I'm not the finger pointing, but for the women who's I'm not submitting to. So first of all, whether you're man saying you want a woman to submit, or woman saying you will or won't, if you're not of Christian or Muslim faith, it's not a requirement. Should you choose to
Right.
to adopt those principles, by all means, so be it. But it's literally not talking to you.
Mhm.
Not at
If you
all.
have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a man, right, or a significant other
That's right.
that you're not, it's not talking to you,
Correct.
right? And so again, let's not misappropriate the word. Should you
Mhm.
choose to do it,
That's
so be it. But it's not a requirement. Here's the other thing. Good
Mhm.
God Almighty.
Look, this is telling you it's getting good.
Be
It's
careful
getting hot.
should you choose to do it, because you're not guaranteed the benefits that doing it does.
Say that one more time.
Good God Almighty. Be careful if you choose to do it outside of those realms of context,
Got you. Okay.
because the
Make it plain,
benefits
preacher.
for your submission aren't for you, because you're not married, you're not of
Right.
either faith. So you may get some of the benefits, right?
Yeah.
Just because of man and woman's
yeah,
nature,
yeah, absolutely.
but not the God-given, right,
Yeah.
design.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to go to Caprice,
Mhm.
and I want you to give us what the Quran
We won't
or
go
the
back to what we
Islamic culture or religion relationship, what do they say about this word submission? Because we found that there was some common thread
did. Mhm.
between different faiths that established exactly what we talk about when we talk about this submissiveness. Talk about it.
So 419 in the Quran basically is telling you basically that man and woman is supposed to submit to each other.
I like it.
So it's
He's
not
right on
just
point, Doc.
it's not just the woman submitting.
Right on point.
A lot of times I think people get mixed up when they see Islamic couples and they see how the woman has submitted to her husband,
Mhm.
and they think that it's just a one-way street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I will give the credit where credit is due. A lot of times women, their submission is on a whole
nother
different level
I agree.
than the man.
Especially when they have
Right.
understanding about submission.
That's the key.
Yeah.
So a lot of times women are deep rooted in their belief.
Mhm.
They're heavy on their deen. And when they're heavy on their deen like that and they marry this man, that's why it's like almost like what he says goes, because they have that much belief, number one, in God, and number two, in the man that they married to lead them properly.
Man.
They don't believe that God is going to lead them down a terrible road with that man that they've chosen to be their husband.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not a problem or a challenge for them to submit at all. They give it all because they've already given it to God.
Somebody did that.
You get what I'm saying?
I know Diana is proud of you tonight. Dog. She is proud of
It's
you
getting good.
tonight. It is.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. When an act of submission is really when there's real understanding,
Yeah.
it puts you in a position of power,
It does.
right?
It does.
Because you understand what your
Understand.
yielding is doing. First of all, you have confidence in, you have faith in, right? And you're right there lockstep with them. So for whatever reason, if they miss, I got it. Right? If they slip, I got it.
Man, y'all are on one tonight. I'm gonna tell you because so let me so now that we've heard about Islam,
Yeah,
there's a book that we've read,
absolutely.
and it says
Speak on it.
wives.
Yes.
That's what we talk about where it's required,
Yes.
right? It's specifically pointing out and a designee for this submission.
Facts.
Okay, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as watch this, fitting in the Lord. Husbands,
Yeah.
love your wives,
Mhm.
right? And do not be harsh with them. That means it's a dual responsibility. Why? For success and sustainability in your
Can I
relationship. in your
relate
marriage.
something? Because in 419, this is funny, right? So live with them, your wives,
Mhm.
in kindness, even if you dislike them, meaning you upset about something or
Mhm.
what have you or whatever, right? It may be that you dislike something and God brings about through it a great deal of good.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So you, a lot of times, you may not like the way that this woman is being. This is to the fellas. You may not like the way she's being, but what she's actually doing is making you better.
Yes.
You get what
Yes.
I'm saying?
Yes.
So
Stay right there. Stay right there. So we from the Quran, from the Bible,
Mhm.
and then we have the Book of Victor, right?
Mhm.
To put it in really simple terms, right? And submission is mutual and voluntary.
Mhm.
It is not just one-sided, it's both.
Yes.
Submission is not subservience.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful yielding for the betterment of both.
Yielding.
Exactly.
It's
Yielding.
giving someone the pieces of them that they would not give to anyone
Yielding
else.
is a choice.
It absolutely is a choice, right?
Mhm.
Generally speaking, right? And here's the thing. Here's kind of the revelation that I got. We talked about for men how we divorce ourselves from our emotions.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, listen, please. Generally speaking, right? It's easier in some ways for women to reach God than men
Mhm.
because it requires a vulnerability, right?
Mhm.
To your point, it requires a yielding.
Yeah.
It requires a saying, you know what? I've come to the end of myself. I need help, right?
Right.
That's right.
And because women embrace their emotions more than we do, right? It's often easier for them.
Mhm.
And so the act of submission by a woman to a man positions us to be more vulnerable,
Yep.
right? We see this powerful example of this woman trusting us, right?
Facts.
Knowing, hopefully, gentlemen, back to standards, that you're partnering with someone who is your equal and, quite frankly, superior to you in a whole lot of ways.
And that's the thing. They're the neck.
Absolutely.
You can't move the head without the neck. What I've come to understand is that because if we look at this book that we're talking about,
Yeah.
in this book, it always refers to wisdom as her.
Yep, it does.
Always, for any
It does.
time you look at this word wisdom, it
does.
always refers to as her. A lot of times, or I'm not even going to say a lot of times, there are times where wives will instruct their husbands, but because there is an order,
Mhm.
the husband is now responsible for signing off.
Come on.
Mhm.
Right? This order that we talk about, that's what's so like important when it comes to this relationship, to this marriage, right? Because the order kind of it makes things simple, right? It triggers this system
Back.
to be proficient.
Facts.
Save yourself time, energy, and money. Systems,
Yep.
right? There's an order, there's a system to the way this thing is set up. Why do we have order? I tell you why. It covers you.
Yes.
Mhm.
It protects you,
Yes.
right? But for a husband, we can't protect what we don't have authorization of or over.
So going back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we was talking about man submitting to his wife and the wife submitting to her husband, so on and so forth, right? So I did my homework well.
You did.
Ephesians 5:21.
Okay.
You know, it's a husband, and then even more, husband and wife submit. That's husband and wife submit to God.
Mm-hmm.
Then husband and wife submit to one another. Ephesians also 5:21
It's an order.
and 5:25, 5:33.
Oh, you just
Colossians-
showing off.
I want y'all to know I don't just sway one way.
Let's see what's happening tonight.
Yeah. I listen. I told y'all. To me, those books don't. To me, they don't separate.
Mhm.
And the more I look at both of them, I see a lot of times they're supporting each other
Mhm.
in what's going on.
Right.
Now, you know, other stuff, but they absolutely support one another. But you know, hey,
To your point, and so please be clear. So this may be your first time ever tuning in to the King's Cutting Board. We are not necessarily a faith-based podcast.
I got one of my
However,
pastor friends on here too.
however,
Make sure
we
shout them
are
out.
men of faith, right?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it's our greatest desire to bring value. And since
Yes.
this topic is really a faith-based conversation, it's only appropriate that we put it in the right context, right? And so I'll add a little bit more. And so this is what I gathered from the reading. A wife submitting to a husband is a willful act that softens him, encourages him, and lifts him closer to the presence of God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which makes him fitting to lead. And to your point, when you use the key word, a system, right?
Mhm.
Because we all work for massive major corporations.
Yep.
And if you think about the structure of that corporation, there's a CEO, there's a CFO, there's a
Right.
president, there's a regional.
Right.
Each of these individuals, right, are talented, are educated, are capable in their own right,
Mhm.
but they structure themselves in the way they all have roles to contribute to the greater good.
Yep.
It's really no different than that.
Absolutely. Make sure you're liking, commenting, and
Absolutely.
sharing. We definitely want to hear from you. Pastor, my good friend Donald Morton says this. He says, let's see, he says, it's not required, but it must be displayed. Okay. Otherwise, I won't know she's capable of it. I won't know she's capable of it. I'm gonna have to ponder on
I'm
that
about
one,
to say, I
Pastor.
need to
I'm gonna have to
expound a
ponder
little
on
bit
that
more.
one. Yeah, you're gonna have to give me some more on that one, Pastor. You have to give me some more on that. But here's what we do know: anything that's not in order is out of order.
So I got a question.
Hold on, I'm sorry. That's another T-shirt. I almost said. Say it one more time.
Anything that's not in order is out of order, right? And like I said again, this order, it covers, it protects, right? Order is important because it provides structure, it provides predictability, which are essential for various systems, processes to function effectively, right? Here are some reasons. Well, I'm going to talk about this later, but I got some reasons why order is crucial, but I'm going to pass it on to you.
Sometimes the most simple statements are the most profound.
Absolutely.
My oldest daughter is 23. I was teaching her how to drive, and we were in a parking lot, quiet on the set. We were in a parking lot. We were in an empty parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I put on my turn signal, and she said, "Daddy, we're in a parking lot. Why did you put your turn signal on?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Baby, because if you always do the right thing, you don't have to worry about doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing when you're supposed to do the right thing, right? It just it becomes habitual, right? And so when you said what you said, you put your turn signal on. It's a matter of protecting yourself. It's for your safety. It's for your own good. Man. So this submission, that's literally what I heard. The submission is for your safety. It's for your protection.
Absolutely.
It's for you, even when you don't know the danger that might be around.
That's key.
Go ahead.
That's key. Sometimes, like, I watched a comedian say this. He said, sometimes, ladies, you give us kickback when you really shouldn't. If we tell you to duck, just duck. And sometimes, because if you don't, you get hit with something or what have you, because I ain't just ducking. In other words, what I'm saying is sometimes you may not see the dangers, like you just said. You may not see the dangers. You may not be aware of the dangers. It also relates to us being men. We know how other men in certain places and environments carry themselves and how they act. So if you go out with a certain type of attire, that's not to say that you shouldn't have that right to wear what you want to wear. But we just know how those individuals or how some individuals conduct themselves.
You guys are so on one tonight because ultimately, when we talk about this word submission, sometimes, to your point earlier, there's something that rises up in people sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right? What happens or tends to happen is we don't recognize this power behind this submitting. It's a sign of strength and not weakness. Right? Because here's the thing. A husband can be won over by the lifestyle of the wife. Because I heard somebody, I don't know who it was. I heard you say, when does my husband earn my submission? I heard that somebody out there said it. There was a question out there.
Well, if she
So let me ask you guys, when does a husband earn that submission?
She said, "I do."
Well, actually, before that, so I saw a great clip the other day, and it said, so it was some other description. It was some other man who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtain favor from the Lord. And it was John. What's his name?
John Maxwell?
No. The pastor used to was with
Okay, we'll come back to that one, Doc.
Okay, yeah. But basically, what he was saying, the favor that you obtain is when you find the wife, not when you get to the altar, say your vows, pay for the reception. It is upon finding her. It's not conditional on the exchanging of the vows.
Absolutely.
And so both of what you all were saying led me to believe this. We've talked about, right, how the state of where we are in Black women and Black men relating to one another, right? How much finger pointing is going on. We went back, right, to Black men being sent off the war to Vietnam, to coming home, to the United States American federal government incentivizing Black women to keep Black men out of the house, right? To then flooding our communities with narcotics that we sold, and then they mass incarcerated. So there's a systematic plan by which, right, to tear down the institution of Black families and marriage.
No doubt.
And then we talk about submission, and it becomes a point of contention and argument. And so I find it frustrating, I'll say it again, that we treat the things, the principles, the institution designed to bring us together, that we allow them to separate us.
Definitely.
We have to see the hand of the enemy at work.
Definitely.
Right? And so this thing, this yielding, this submission is designed for the order and the structure of marriage and God to bring us together, right? To ultimately get us to all of the things that we say we want, yet we're allowing it to divide.
The ironic thing about that is this submission, this order, this system that we're talking about, it ultimately, it's a place of safety.
It is.
For females, right? For wives.
Yeah.
I often tell my kids this. I say, hey, listen, I ask them a question. I said, why do we follow instructions? And the response is because it makes life easier.
That's good.
Everybody somewhere, anywhere is following this system, this order.
They are.
They're submitting to somebody somewhere.
They are.
Right. And what happens for me is I love submission because it doesn't require me to be responsible for the outcome.
Here's what's crazy. Here's what's crazy. To your credit, you said this because you talked about the word training. And how in the context of marriage or relationship, it's one of those words that people say, wait a minute, you're not going to train me, however, at work. And so we submit ourselves to at work, right? To instruction, to direction, to your boss, to your manager, yet we'll bristle and push back about submission in the order in which that allows you to ultimately get out of the system that you don't want to go to every day.
Correct.
But it's funny that you say that because I was watching a video on that, and so wives, a lot of men, like, you know, this is what a lot of guys feel or think, right? And I'm not even going to speak on the single guys like myself, or, you know, I'm talking about the married guys. How is it that you have a man that's willing to lay down his life, give up his check, do all of these things for you, and you give him the kickback when he asks you to cook or whatever the case may be? How come you can't cook? How come you did? But when your boss say, hey, Lisa, I need that report done by 5 p.m. before you go home, and you calling the husband, hey, honey, I'm gonna be late. You know what I mean? And you know, whether we understand this or not, we're really just a number in the workforce. They will replace us in a heartbeat. But the thing is, when you're married, you don't easily get replaced. That's a love that lasts with you. Even if you get divorced or what have you, it's still, you still got a lot of memories and a lot of love in your heart
Yeah.
about, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna tell you this though, Caprice. This submission
Mm-hmm.
is like a really heavy reverence.
It is definitely
Right. It's a deep level of respect.
It is.
Right. But it's also a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Right. The spirit, this spirit of respect. And what I've learned about spirits is that they're transferable.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you don't ultimately, to Pastor's point, if you don't ultimately display
Mm-hmm.
or demonstrate submissiveness, that's received as being disrespectful in some terms, right?
Yes,
and then when
that's
you're
how men take it.
transferring that spirit of disrespect, guess what you're gonna get back? Disrespect.
More disrespect, right?
More disrespect.
So yeah, because that energy, sometimes, you know, and I can speak. Let me speak for myself and be a little transparent. So sometimes people can say I'm very negative or so on and so forth. So with me, it's more so a choice of words. You know, sometimes, a lot of times, or whatever you want to call it, use the wrong choice of words. So I have to, quote unquote, humble myself and allow folks who are better at using words to convey the message that I'm trying to convey, pick up on that and let their energy rub off on me.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's not an easy thing. And that's like submission. You know, sometimes and this goes for both. Sometimes a woman, as a woman may be sitting there like, no, that's wrong. But you have to allow that man to make that mistake and say, honey, you was right. But the man has to be humble enough to come and say, you know what, honey, you was right. I don't know what I was thinking.
So to your point though, right?
Mm-hmm.
The power to define is the power to fulfill, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that has to happen is real, true understanding, right? Because what I want to give people the benefit of the doubt of is that if they really understood the intent and the purpose of submission,
Mm-hmm.
then they wouldn't be talking about what they won't do. You understand what I'm saying? Also for men, right? Because there's a other side of that, right?
Yes.
Listen, this is just me. I'm not going to speak for the fellas. But generally speaking, men who are insistent upon a woman or even seeking a woman to submit, we got to pass it on the line. That's F-boy energy. Like I don't even understand that.
Well, you know what, Vic, this is the funny part about it, right? To me, it's not a requirement or anything like that, because I can tell when a woman feels how she feels and what she's seeing. So it's up to the man to adjust his behavior. Now, here's the catch to it. With some people, it's going to take a minute. Some people, you know what I mean? So if the woman sees that, she's going to adjust and adapt accordingly. So the ones that submit to me. It's like you said, it's that F-boy energy.
Yeah.
F-boy RD.
Man, let me give you the secret sauce to helping your woman submit without you having to say a word. Okay. Take her out of survival mode.
Do what you're supposed to do.
Take her out of survival mode.
I'm a tag on to that.
Absolutely.
I'm a tag
By all means.
because
That's
I've heard
good,
that. I've heard that say, and I'm gonna keep it 100. This
I like that. That's
this
good.
is just me. That's one of the ones that raises the hair on the back of my neck.
Okay.
Right? Because when we talk about standards,
Mhm.
right? Now don't get me wrong, because purpose is required.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a man that's worthy of a woman submitting to you,
Mm-hmm.
you have the ability to call your shots. You can find and choose a woman who's not in survival mode.
But
Because not all of them are.
But that's my point. So my point is this, right? Let's say you find someone who's not in survival mode,
Who's done the work,
who's done all the work,
self-aware,
right? Self-aware.
in God's face.
Ultimately, at some point, they still have to trust the husband.
Oh, no doubt about it.
So
I'm with you on
when
that.
I say take them out of survival mode, there shouldn't be a time where your wife is concerned
I'm with you.
about the potentially deviating from the plan that was already pre-record.
I'm with you. And the reason why I said that, right? Because when we talk about the misunderstanding and the misappropriation of submission, even when we hear, oftentimes when we hear women talking about being willing to submit, it's in a dysfunctional manner.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is, you'll hear, well, I'm tired of making all the decisions.
Right.
I'll gladly let it.
Right.
So they're talking about bringing all of this stuff, right? Their bills, their debt, their trauma, their children. There's nothing wrong with any of that. We all have life circumstances. And just saying, here, take this, you got it, you deal with it. That's not what submission. That's not what submission means. That's something completely different. It's a spiritual matter.
It definitely is. It definitely is. Submission, with allowing the man to lead, and you have to be 100% comfortable with that man leading. The thing is, I think it's a deeper challenge for women than what a lot of us may think, because I think a lot of times they've been disappointed so many times in their life by men, and some of it may not even have to do with the current man. It may have to do with whether it was the father, whether it was a previous husband, whether it was kid's father, boyfriend in high school, anything. You know what I mean? Different things can affect women to have them respond in different ways. You know what I mean? And not to get too deep or go left, but to bring something up. We'll get into this later. The movie that we, you know what I mean? Seeing that, if that man had stayed on that other path, that could also be a thing of them not submitting.
And that's
you know what I mean?
The thing when we talk about,
because that trust is broken.
When we talk about the survival mode.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I don't have any data on what I'm about to say. Right.
Fair.
But you talk about women who got it all together.
Relatively speaking.
Right. I'm under the belief, with no data, this is just all opinionated right now,
right,
that there may be more women that are not whole,
absolutely,
than that are whole.
Absolutely.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, so when we have these conversations, we often hear all the women, to your point, say, if the man did this and if the man did that, I would do this and I would do that. Submission, again, this is why it's so important to, one, understand the purpose of submitting.
Facts.
Right? And then, because it's not contingent upon what the man doesn't or does do. That's not the contingency.
It's not
of a wife submitting.
It's not at all.
Right? But a lot of times, that's what you find. There's a story, Pastor Didi, our pastor, talks about where they were married. They were early in their marriage, right? And Pastor Mike used to cut up, right? He used to, come in the house fussing, just mad, angry. And she made a decision to say, in spite of how he acts,
come on now,
I'm gonna cook for him.
Come on now,
I'm gonna clean for him.
Yes.
I'm gonna have his bath water running.
Good stuff.
And then all of a sudden, Pastor Mike said it was so powerful that it led him to now act accordingly, not based on what she was doing, but just understanding the power behind why she was doing what she was doing.
So real quick,
Go ahead.
I just want to add this context. Someone who's been married, right? So the Bible says that we perish, right, for a lack of knowledge,
right.
for a lack of understanding. And so these things that we're talking about, while not easily done, are not complicated concepts.
Definitely not.
But when we talk about standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to position yourselves in things of God, then you have to be understanding and in the way of God, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to sound foolish, right? It's going to be what twinkling brass, right, and clanging cymbal. It's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
To your point,
Mhm.
it's an act by which, even when it seems foolish, has the ability to completely change, right? A man's nature, or to your point, a woman's nature. Because when we talk about submission, here's what we never get to. We never get to the cross that men have to bear on the flip side of it. So, fellas, for all of you all who want a woman to submit to you, right? From a biblical standpoint, the prerequisite is that you love her like Christ loved the church.
Period.
Somebody posted in our group the other day, and I said, so are you prepared to do that?
Yeah.
Because I know I don't always act right.
Right.
So if you use that analogy and what you do, right, in your frame of context of your faith, how often you veer outside of that. Imagine a woman who went outside the parameters of your marriage as often as you outside the parameters, and you have to love her without ceasing, without failing, without flaw, and take her back every time.
Here's the thing, right? We talk about the spirit of disrespect.
Yeah.
Right. What you wives got to understand is you're not just disrespecting your husbands. You're also disrespecting the one who sent your husband.
As to your point, as is the man. In the word of God, even the Bible says, like, right, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And so for men who believe that this submission is a lordship or a subservient relationship, you're out of pocket with it, fellas.
All the way. So the story that I was going to tell was an article that I had read. Ruby D married to Ossie Davis.
Absolutely.
So back in the day when they got married, she was telling us, right? She said they got married, they were young and loved, wonderful. They both were doing Broadway before even the movies. They were doing Broadway, and then I guess he got his first big role in the movies or something like that. And the career took off, and they was on this whirlwind of things and so on and so forth. And he started stepping out, engaging in a lot of reckless activities.
Listen,
Now, here's the catch. She said she put up with it for as long as she could. And she told him, go ahead. You basically, in other words, in our terms now, you for the streets.
Yeah.
So go ahead out there in the streets.
Yeah.
She didn't divorce him, though. This was very, very interesting. She allowed him to go find himself. And so when he went out there and was doing all the craziness or what have you, she said, I think in like 2 years or whatever, bruh man was back. And she said, you know, begging and pleading, she didn't take him back like right off the break. You got to earn that back. Yeah. And he earned it back because he said, I realized what I had versus what I thought I wanted. You know what I mean? And sometimes what you think you want, you can jump out there and, you know, all of that and so on and so forth. And then you find, damn, I messed up a good thing. I need to figure out and see what I got to do to try to get this back. Now this is my point. She initially submitted to him. She allowed him to go out and find himself. And what he did was realize, I guess, that he hadn't submitted to her. And when he came back, full submission. This is the one I'm supposed to be with. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not entertaining no more of that foolishness.
Right on.
You see what I'm saying?
Right on.
That's an amazing strength on her part, number one, because a lot of women today, they ain't taking you back, bro.
Well, here's the caveat. So I have daughters. I don't know how old they were when they got together, right? But I'm 48. I'll be 49 in about a week or so. You shouldn't expect that to be going on at the 28, 18, maybe. 48. No.
They were young.
So let's put that in its proper perspective, because nobody should be expecting that.
Right.
But I think you had something you wanted to jump in there with.
No, so I was thinking about really what Capri said, and just trying to consider how that would look. You said that it was a matter of 2 years
Yeah, they were young now. Keep that in perspective. They were, like I said, it was like his first major role. So he might have been 27.
Oh, so he was off on the road working.
No, what happened basically, they were together, they were married. He got a big role or what have you, because he was doing Broadway. So you know the transition from Broadway to the any role on the big screen,
Right.
At that time is a big role. So once he transitioned to the movie screen, I guess he felt like I've arrived. Because another role come and another role come. So now he feeling himself.
Okay.
And so once you started getting that attention that you weren't getting while you were on Broadway, it's kind of your head. In other words, your head get big.
So let me. I want to challenge what you said just a little bit. I don't think you were incorrect, but I do think it was slightly incomplete because you said he submitted to her. I submit that he submitted back to God.
True, that too, definitely.
Right? Because what happens is there's an order. Right? And when you deviate from this order, it causes this type of tension and stress.
He got convicted.
That's
all it is. He got convicted while he was out there running around.
Because again,
it was like, hey, bro, you know you did wrong.
I'm gonna tell you what tends to happen in those moments when we deviate, we lose our covering.
Right.
And we lose our covering. So imagine it's pouring down outside. You got an umbrella and you put the umbrella to the side. You're gonna get soaked and wet. But when you put that covering back over you, it protects you from the storm.
Remember the question I asked in the group, right? The question that I put up: what's the difference? What do you gain from a wife that you don't get from a girlfriend? And I forgot the sister name.
Unique.
She came in and she's been the only one.
It's gonna keep banging
She
on the
has
counter.
been the only one. I'm sorry. She has been the only one who's answered that correct. She's been the only one. Everybody else has been like, what you mean? Cooking? I say, girlfriends cook. What you mean? This, that, clean. She's been the only one to say favor. You know what I mean?
That favor, that favor
is amazing.
It's
so she's on point.
That
she
favor
is on point.
It's something different, man. I don't want to go into.
Shout out to Unique. You said her name Unique. Shout out to Unique.
I do want to touch on the favor, but I see you got something over there. So go with it.
It's just it's more of the same. So it's a clarification for a wife practicing submission to her husband. It does not mean she should be a silent yes person.
That's right.
Or dormant. Nor does it mean she should have no opinions of her own. Rather, a wife who chooses to take an attitude of to take an attitude of submission towards her husband is a wife who has a heart of being supportive towards her husband. She does so because she chooses to. In choosing to support her husband, she is empowering him to have the self-respect he needs. See, that's the part. Right. So to your point, going back to Ozzy, right? How for men sometimes power can go to our heads, right? And when it does, we misunderstand, we miss the mark. I had a friend of mine who was just talking about the fact that her young son just recently had a child, and I said something that was really real. I said, "Did you do a paternity test?" She was like, "Well, no," and I just said, "Listen. Oftentimes, there are young brothers out here who are moving around in the streets, dealing with multiple women, have a child by a woman under the assumption that they're the only one, and they're moving the exact same way, right? Where the woman will know, but the young dude will have a misunderstanding of his place and his power in the situation, in the relationship. And so I was saying that this act of submission really truly brings us to a real understanding of who we are, where we are, and most importantly, where we need to go.
So this favor, right? Again, because we're talking about this distinction between just being with someone and being married to someone.
Facts.
Right?
Facts.
It says when you find a wife, you obtain favor
from God.
From the Lord.
From God.
This grace, right? This grace that now saturates your environments, that saturates your home, that protects you, that covers you, right? That this blessing that allows you ultimately to also be a blessing.
Absolutely.
Right? This empowerment to prosper.
Yeah.
You this is what you gain that you can't gain from just a girlfriend.
And to your point, bro, it lightens your burden.
Absolutely.
Can I keep it a buck? I'm not mad at dudes who don't want to sign up for marriage.
Right.
Especially if they understand what it requires. Because if you grasp what it's like to love a woman as Christ loved the church, you understand the magnitude and the responsibility.
Let me tell you something. You would rather be single and wish you were married than to be married and wish you were single.
Facts. And so back to those standards, right? It's incumbent upon, especially for those of us who are people of faith, that I believe that you partner with people of faith, right? You should not make the decision to partner with someone in marriage because they smell good, they look good, right? They make good money.
I got a better one, because they make you feel good.
Here's how about even if they love you a lot, it's not enough. We posted that in the group. If there is not divine purpose in it, you're not going to have the ability to fulfill the requirements.
A friend of mine said, "What love got to do with it?"
That's bad. That's real.
Yeah. Sometimes, speaking of what you were just saying, Vic, sometimes a person can help you find your purpose. You know what I mean? Some of us out here, honestly, just because of how we were raised and how we came up, we don't. A lot of folks are just wandering, have no purpose. But I think one of the big things is when you come across someone who can help you find your purpose, and them helping you find your purpose, you know that person is a special person.
That's good, because when I talked about how wives have the ability to change the heart of kings, right? And ultimately cause their husbands to come into a place where they're residing in this order, in this reverence, right? It what happens is, ladies, your makeup is as a nurturer, right? That's the very thing you guys do, hands down, way better than men by far. It's not even close. Right?
That's who you are.
So now, in understanding that's a part of who God created you. And I think that was part of the reason God created that nurturing spirit, so you now can become that helpmeet, that cultivator of your husband, to help him develop into the man that ultimately God needs and wants him to be. We're not preaching, we just giving you really principles.
So a lot of women are hearing you, but they're not feeling you. They're skeptical because they haven't experienced this. So I'm a storyteller. I believe this is a powerful analogy, because I really believe a lot of women are saying, yeah, okay, I hear you.
Right.
Here is what I believe to be the perfect example, though. Watch a man with his daughter.
Facts. Or his mother.
Yep. But especially with his daughter, though, right? We know some hardcore dudes. I've watched dudes that are not to be played with have barrettes put in their hair. You understand what I'm saying? Have makeup put on their face. They're playing dollies. They're playing kitchen. They're playing house. I watched the dude that I know how he moves skip down the street, but it was because he was holding his daughter's hand. And what I would say to you, though, right, that femininity, right, taps into our masculinity in a way in which balances us out like nothing else can.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And it shows. I've been in relationships before where the woman observing was actually envious of my relationship with my daughters, because my daughters accessed a piece and a part of me that they could not.
We can go back. I'm gonna let you the story, because literally I was gonna say we can go back to what you said we're gonna talk about next episode.
Yeah.
Right? Where you talk about guys facing 20 years.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
And breaking down like
Listen.
Like
I was
baby.
gonna say something,
Bro.
but
I'm gonna tell you something, right? And I'm not gonna get too deep into this, right? I've known people who in the streets, right, had daughters or have daughters, right? This is how powerful what you just said is, right?
Yeah.
They didn't revenge the death of their son because their son was murdered because they had their little girl. And they said, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
But they were vicious in the street.
Yeah.
Vicious in the street. But their little girl, you get what I'm saying?
I'm telling you.
Man.
I'm telling you.
It's a lot. It's a lot, bro.
so I
It's a lot.
think it all again, it all goes back to this power that, and we always talk about this. Females have
Yes.
Here's
Little
what's
girls,
funny.
little girls.
Here's what's funny because we all have girls.
How
Here's what we all have daughters. Our daughters know it, and the women don't. My daughters know how to work me, Jack.
So
Hey.
let me challenge you.
I
don't think women. I think women are more challenged with demonstrating the power versus knowing they have the power.
Or losing it, because it also goes back to where there's a large segment, right, of Black women who are fatherless,
Yeah.
who have also dealt with abuse on a physical, mental, spiritual, verbal level, right? And so you lose some of that innocence and understanding, and so that wasn't to minimize what that looks like, right? And so, man, we could keep going in this, bro.
I'm gonna give you guys one real quick, right? So, one of the toughest females I know, right? One of the toughest females I've known. I go back and forth with this young lady. Tooth and nail is my daughter, right? My daughter pushes me to the brink of like, I don't want to talk with you. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And we'll go months, 3 months, not a word. She's super stubborn. She is super, but she knows how to break me down. She knows that I'm going to be the one to pick up.
I'm gonna tell you what's funny
what's
about
going
that.
on.
I'm gonna tell you what's funny about that. I actually had this conversation with my wife Diana, right? And I said, listen, most times, like 99.9% of the time,
Yeah.
if I'm angry, you got everything you need to switch that thing like in a matter of seconds. Like literally, like it's really that easy.
Yeah.
I can recall times where I wanted to be mad.
Slim.
I'm like, I want to be mad at her tonight. I don't want no hug, no kiss.
Yeah.
And no, by the time it's all said and done, you like, all right, I go downstairs and get you something. What you need?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
bruh.
and that's what I'm saying. If we understood the power, right,
Bruh.
and then in conjunction with this positioning
And the purpose. That's
I'm
three
and
trying to
the
things.
tell you,
purpose,
That's three
I'm trying
things.
to. I've never been married, right? So, like my daughter, I'm dead. I'm dead at.
Right.
You know what I
You
mean,
tracking.
bruh? We could have a heated discussion.
Yeah.
I say discussion.
How old is
I
your
don't say
daughter?
Argument. She's 27.
okay.
Heated discussion.
Yeah.
Heated. Yeah, you back and forth, right? And I could, like you just said, want to be mad. My bad.
We got this thing about hitting the counter, y'all.
I could want to be mad. I could want to be upset. And like I said, a lot of it's all on her as far as she holds the key.
Yeah.
But
Because if she called me and said, "Hey, Dad, what you doing?" Guess
You
what?
just said something that's so critical. And oftentimes when we talk about standards, we impose them upon women, but we don't own them as men.
Right.
Our babies, our daughters, our girls, they hold our hearts. And truthfully speaking, as a man, if you aren't spending your time, your energy with a woman who does the same, you're wasting her time and yours.
Mhm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So right back to the cat.
Mhm.
So it's an inside joke. We let everybody in. Bruce and I both ate cats. Flat out.
I used to. I can't even.
But that's
I
what's
can't
crazy.
even go there anymore.
He been changed.
Man,
Come here.
rearranged.
You understand what I'm saying?
Shaped, molded.
Both past tense hated cats. Listen, I told y'all I was doing dating apps before. If a woman had a cat, an animal in the picture in her bed, it's swipe left. It's a non-starter, right?
Mhm.
However, you find the woman that holds your heart, and it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden we rubbing cats. No pause.
Yeah.
No
He
pause.
Godfather now. He rubbing cats.
So it changes everything. Listen, fellas, we are at an hour.
Yeah. We
Man,
are.
the fact
good,
that we can
man.
keep going
On and
about
on and
this
on.
says that it's so much to it.
Yeah.
It is.
You so good at it, man. Tie a bow on it for us this evening, Bruce.
So I'm gonna leave you with this, right? We understand that this is a dual responsibility for both husband and wives, right? I think when we both, men and women, understand, I keep going back to it, this order, we can then recognize it's less about the person and more about the order of the positioning, right? This system that has been put in place to have and cultivate an effective relationship when it comes to marriage, right? While trust can certainly cause a person to judge the person and not want to submit for obvious reasons, we then need to assess, is this really a purpose relationship, right? But most times, and I would even feel safe to say every time or by the time you get married, guess what? You already put yourself in a place where now you are bound to your commitment. You are bound to this requirement that we're talking about because you stepped over into a whole nother realm now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have not only a legal obligation, you have a God obligation.
Accept the purpose.
When you were talking, it made me, because I keep seeing the analogy because you keep talking about the structure. So I thought about a corporation.
Yes.
Right? And there's a reason a corporation provides a structure for purpose, right? Because it protects, right? It provides, and it prospers. And so this same act, right? We have to understand if we're missing the purpose of submission, we're missing the benefit of submission. Man, this has been, y'all are amazing. Caprice did his homework tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please
share,
please follow, please share. Remember the Kings 'S Cutting Board podcast on Facebook, the Kings Cutting Board 2024 on YouTube. We hope something that we said have been as of value. We hope that you will endeavor to lean in, to love on, to gain a greater understanding of the people around you, the people that you love. Remember, our greatest desire is to establish new norms that cause men and women, especially Black men and women, to talk to each other far more than at each other. We have been the King's Cutting Board. We're signing off on behalf of our executive producer, Coach Princess D, the gentleman to my right with the hat on,
Bruce Bailey.
I've
Y'all already
been
know
Victor
what it is.
Bond.
Quiet boy.
The gentleman to my left,
Don Chico. Get active.
Make sure,
active.
make sure you guys chop it up in the chat.
That's what I'm saying. Get
Chop
active
it up in the chat.
in the chat.
We want to know what y'all thought about tonight.
Yes.
What was your takeaway?
yes,
Give us some takeaways from the night.
On the
give
page.
Give us some feedback. You know, if there were some things that you thought we should have expanded on, let us know.
Right.
Because you know we can chop it up in the chat. Chop it up
Exactly.
in the chat.
we better
And,
together.
and throw us topics that you might want us to
What you wanna
talk
talk
about.
Absolutely. Throw
You know
us
what I
some
mean?
topics.
For sure.
So
But always remember,
get active.
all we need is, guys, is some peace,
And
a peace,
Peace.
peace.
peace. Later, y'all.